I think we are live. Hi, besties and bosses. Happy Tuesday. How is everyone doing? How was your weekend? While I'm chit-chatting, I'm going to make sure I'm pulling this up in the group because, as y'all know, for some reason, sometimes in the little Facebook manager thing, sometimes I can see your comments, sometimes I can't. So I try to find it in the group because I can always see your comments there, even though we usually have like a 10-minute lag and sometimes I don't see them till after. We're gonna make all the technology work today. I'm curious how you're all doing. I'm doing well. I had a lovely weekend. I went to New Jersey to go see one of my good friends, actually a coaching friend that I met when I was doing coach training. And I thought that was 9 years ago, but I met her before I met my husband. So I think that was almost 10 years ago, which is wild. I didn't start my business right away. I took coach training for about a year and then was working in advertising, sort of like unofficially coached there and worked with some people on the side. It was maybe, I guess it must have been more like 2.5 years after that I started my business. But we met in that. So I went over to, and she used to live in different places and she now lives in New Jersey. So we've known each other for 10 years, which is very fun. Had a grown-up slumber party and it's a lovely weekend. It was a pretty rainy weekend here, but a lovely weekend. I'm still scrolling to find this live in our group. So that's what I was up to and just enjoying. It is fall in New York City. It is my favorite season. It is my favorite time of the year. For those of you who know New York City, maybe I'm not going to find this in the group. It is just glorious here in the fall. I don't know if any of y'all, let me know if you've been to New York in the fall. Like the leaves start to change, but also it's just like, it's the best time to be in New York City. So very much just feeling the fall vibes and excited for our conversation today. We're going to talk about my dirty secrets for business success, or for what's, the things I'm not supposed to tell you that have gone into building, growing, scaling a booked out multi-six-figure business. And I'm excited to talk about some of these things. I imagine a few of these things we've probably chatted about before in the group. I still can't find my live. Hopefully I'm actually live, because I know last week we had that crash. But I'll give this one more scroll, and then I'm just going to focus on talking because it says I'm live. But a couple of these things I might have shared in different ways over different conversations. I want to collate some of these because I think these are the things that, gosh, I feel like no one talks about in our space. I feel like I felt wrong about when I was growing my business at different phases. I feel like I've needed coaching around some of these things. I also hopefully think some of these things will be normalizing for you. I just think this is the shit that isn't necessarily cool to talk about, but is just the truth about running a very successful business. I've been booked out for 4.5 going on 5 years, maybe 5 years at this point. I kind of lose track of the timelines. I feel like I say 4.5 years and then suddenly it's been 6 years I've been saying that or something. We've made multi-six figures in this business for years. We generate base rate around, I run a revenue share model, so around 300K, then I usually make around 350K minimum, and then with room to scale with a one-on-one model only. And I've very intentionally grown a one-on-one business, and that alone is something people have told me not to do. Okay, I'm going to stop scrolling, y'all. If I can't see your comments, I am so sorry. Hopefully this will just pop up on my side. Usually I can see it, but I will keep an eye on the comments. Here, see, it says I have a comment, and I can't. This is so weird, y'all. Sorry. Okay, Emma. Okay, I just hit something, and it did something. Emma says, hi. Can't stay for the whole thing, but I'll be here for a bit. Thank you. Okay, I hit a button. I can see your comments. This is very, very, very exciting. Okay. Good. Now we can dive in. And before we dive into the things, I should share 2 announcements. So one, if you're here, like Emma, now, or anytime during this live stream, I know a couple of you hop on late, leave me an emoji, say hi. You are entered to win. We always do a giveaway. I'm giving away 1 copy of our workshop, which is what is the name of my workshop? It is, I'm all distracted by trying to make the Facebook work. Leverage Your Unique Millionaire Money Blueprint. It's a really great one. It's a workshop with a workbook where it goes into identifying the way you think about money, how to understand your relationship with richness and wealth. I think it's one of my favorites with the money stuff. So say hi, you'll be entered to win one of those. That is usually something we charge for, and we will gift that to you. Other announcement, my Friday opened up completely. I had the day blocked off. My stepson is a tennis player, and I was going to watch his tennis tournament, but he has now had his tennis tournament moved to Saturday, which means if you've been thinking about a coaching intensive and want to sneak one in, I have an availability that I did not have previously, but I'll also drop a link for a free coaching session. We've been opening up a couple of those, but they book up pretty quickly because I am fully booked. So we'll have a couple of those open on Fridays. I'll drop a link for that for any of you who want to take me up on that. Okay, now let's dive into, because I've been chit-chatting and trying to make the comments work forever. Let's talk the good stuff. so many things I want to say here. I think first and foremost, something that feels really important that if you know me, if you've been around my world for a hot second, I talk so much about doing business your way. That is, I talk about creating your version of success. That's not like a fun tagline that I put on my website at a certain point. It's something I really, truly believe is the reason so many of us get into business in the first place, is we want to have more control over our work, over our finances, over our life. Obviously, control is an illusion, but just in terms of we want to have a life by design, a business by design. I'm a really big believer as an entrepreneur, we are making our own rules, and you get to do that. And of course, there are within that practical truths around business, practical strategies, practical things that have to go into place. I think, this doesn't mean, I think that can almost get misunderstood in our space, but I'm such a big believer in that. And I know I spent a decade acting, now, 7.5 years going on 8 years in business. I've just always maybe ruled is the wrong word, but I've always operated my life through that mindset of, I really always want to be the one steering the ship. Obviously, outside circumstances we can't control. Right, when COVID happens, that's something we can't control. But how am I really being the CEO? I talk about your CEO role, like the CEO of my business and of my life, and really doing things by choice. And with that, what I found was just really interesting when I came into the online space, because I think that is such an entrepreneurial mindset. I think it is. I think so many of us are driven by, I think that there's a freedom in that, right? A freedom of choice in that way. And how fascinating is to me that is, I believe, why so many of us start businesses, or so many of us are craving that, even if that's not consciously why we've started businesses. And I'm wondering from those of you now or on the replay, if that feels like something that is at least part of the drive for you, or one of the values for you. How, when I came into the space quite a long time ago, but when I came into the space, and I think this is still the case, just how many rules there seem to be in a space that also simultaneously preaches no rules. And it just feels like, I think sometimes a bit of a mindfuck, where it's sort of like, we come in here and the online space is like, you get to do things your way and you can make money in any way you want, but also here's the right way to do things, but also you can only do it if you follow these steps, but also you, like, yes, have it your way, but also, like, here's the way it's supposed to be. And I think it's just a very fascinating thing that I've just witnessed myself, and I witness with your clients now when they bring things to the table, and I'm like, this isn't a problem. This is just you choosing to do something different than the online space says. And so just so you can understand my frame of mind, that's a little bit of where I'm coming from. So I've just very much built a business fully by design and following my own rules that is not the way I have been told I'm supposed to build, grow, and scale a business. I know we've done so many live streams on this, so I won't talk too much about this, but when I came into this space, the Ascension model was sort of like the only way to go. I think this is still the case, right? Where there's just so much about how can you scale your way out of coaching as quickly as possible. And I have clients where that is what we are working on, and that is so right for them. Please do not, I always say this when we have this conversation, please do not hear this conversation to say you need to do what I'm doing. That just then becomes more of the supposed to conversation. But that really was the narrative, and I think that still is in many ways the narrative, and I've just very consciously chosen to not do that, to scale a one-on-one only model where, I've been in business for a long time. I have the audience size. I could absolutely do something different to make more money faster if I chose to. I do a lot of things in my business that people are saying are wrong, that I know that if I didn't work with the coach I work with, and if I didn't build that relationship with her, that I'm sure I would get coached out of. The people would be like, is that a bad mindset? Is that a bad money mindset? There's just a lot there. So I want to dispel some. I want to share some of the dirty secrets and dirty truths behind my business, that these are basically the things that, like, the online space says you're not supposed to talk about, or like that aren't supposed to be the way things are. Not because I want you to feel like you need to have your business feel the same way or operate the same way as mine at all, but more to just give you a different lens and some permission, and also some normalization around some of the narratives I sometimes hear, and I hear from clients as well, that can be very confusing. And just to widen the net, I don't think any of these are actually wrong or bad, but I do think some of the things we're going to talk about today are like the things I'm not supposed to say to you. Like, I'm not supposed to tell you some of these things. And it's like, it just feels so bogus to me. I very much believe in being as as transparent as possible around business. So that's what we're going to dig into. I'm going to share a little bit about, give you a peek at my weekly schedule, what I actually think about working, some thoughts on hard work that probably not supposed to say, but I'm just going to say the things, and you get to take what you will from them. We'll just dive into that a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit about the irony of my one-on-one model that dawned on me recently that just makes me laugh to myself. And then I will also just share one of the things I think I'm not supposed to say out loud, but I'm going to, and my wish for you in business. And I hope this will be a permission-giving conversation. I hope this will be a normalizing conversation. I hope this will serve you. And as always, my intention, my goal is to be a resource to you as much as an open book as possible. So if you have questions as we're talking through this, reflections, always throw them at me. So the first thing, let's talk about my schedule. Let's talk about the dirty secret behind making multi-six figures as a booked out one-on-one coach. Y'all, I work a pretty full schedule and I love it. And I think that I'm just like not supposed to say that. And I did that very intentionally and very on purpose. And we've probably done a live on this a couple of years ago, but I want to talk about this a bit. And then I also want to talk about the realities of hard work. So first and foremost, I have plenty of clients who are making far more money than me, working far fewer hours than me, and I reflect that to say what I'm sharing here does not need to be your truth. And I also don't work a ton of hours, or not a ton of hours. I don't have a full schedule, like, because I don't know another way to do that. I have coached clients to, again, make more money than me, work fewer hours than me. I know how the sausage is made, right? Like, I know how that is done. If that is something I chose, I could. And this is very intentional for me because I like to work. And I think that's just something we're not supposed to say in our space. I have clients who hate to work. I mean, I literally have one client who comes to mind who's like, Kim, I feel like I'm not supposed to say this, that I don't really I like my work, but I really want to work as little as possible. And so that's what we've worked on setting up for her and her business. But I feel like either side of this, it's almost like we're not supposed to talk about this in our space, right? If you really don't want to work, it's almost like, am I lazy? Am I wrong? Am I bad? And it feels like you can't claim that or figure out how to make that happen. Just like if you're someone like me where it's like, I genuinely like to work. Like, I love my work. When I have, my Friday is open because I blocked it off a couple months ago for the tennis tournament I told you all about. I could just keep that blocked off, except for I don't have something else scheduled, and I would so much rather get on some coaching calls. I would so much rather serve my client. Like, that is just what I would like to do with my days. Do I enjoy time off? Absolutely. Do I enjoy vacation? Absolutely. Do I like to do busy work? Fuck no. Do I like to do more work than I need to or to grind it out? No, of course not. But I really love what I do. When I was acting, I think this is probably the context I shared this in before. For those of you who don't know, I spent a decade acting. One of the reasons I stopped acting was that I stopped loving the industry and the process of acting. And I think if you don't love the process of what you're doing, that's just a tough journey. And I used to really love the process of auditioning and the business of the acting industry. And I kind of stopped loving that. And that to me felt like a big red flag. But the other reason, or one of the other reasons I stopped acting, is I felt very frustrated because I couldn't work enough. It was very much out of my control because you're always waiting for someone to give you a job. And I frankly hated that. And it made me, I don't know about clinically depressed, but it definitely did not serve my well-being and my sense of purpose. If anyone has watched the, what is it? It's like the longevity series I think it's on Netflix. There's a term, and I can't pronounce it, Ikigai. It's a term basically about like finding your purpose, and this is what they found when they look at centenarians. One of the things that helps them to live longer. I really sincerely believe for many of us, it might not be working in your business. It might be serving your family, or it might be, a sport or a hobby or something like that, but having a sense of purpose and a fulfilling reason to fill your day, I think is actually something that we derive happiness from, and that lends to our longevity, if not our quality of life. And I think we just don't talk about that enough. And again, if you don't want to work a bunch in your business, I have plenty of clients, and I can think of one friend off the top of my mind who I think maybe works 10 or 20 hours a week and makes $1 million plus a year, right? Like, this isn't even about like hours worked as much as enjoying the aspect of the work itself. And not wanting to just figure the way like out of that. So again, I just want to normalize that for those of you who, and again, if you don't like to work, that's also totally fine, but this is just one of my dirty secrets. I work a relatively full schedule. I did that on purpose. I like to work. If I were to have a day like Friday that suddenly is open without calls, like it bums me out. If I'm not on coaching calls, like that just is my truth. I feel like even when I met my husband, one of the things we talked about was like I need to be with someone who understands like this is going to be a big part of my life and not something. In fact, my husband and I had a conversation about this recently. He's an actor, and I'm like, if you suddenly book a TV show and you're making like $1 gazillion, I don't know that I would change that much. I might pull back a day so that I could like come hang out on set, but I don't think I would change that much because I just genuinely enjoy what I do and I genuinely enjoy working. So I know you're not supposed to say that, and I know it's like almost sexier to say the opposite, but I feel like because of that, sometimes we're also selling ourselves on a bill of goods in business that isn't even a reality, or chasing things in business that aren't a reality. And again, this isn't about number of hours worked. This isn't about you need to work a full, like you might want to work 15 hours a week so you can be with your kids, but do you actually even enjoy the aspect of your work? And if not, maybe that's not such a horrible thing to think about, as opposed to how can I, like, I hate what I'm doing, but how can I just do as little as possible? Because I don't like doing it, right? I think that's just where we can get a little crunchy with things. So there's that. I'm just so curious from all of you too, if this is something any of you feel at all. And I the other reason I want to share this, and I want to talk about the hard work piece a little bit, but the other reason I share this is I literally had to have plenty of calls earlier on in my business with my coach where I was worried there was something wrong with me because of some of the narratives in our space. And I was like, maybe I have a problem. Like maybe this is something I should be ashamed of. Maybe this is something I shouldn't talk about, as opposed to like, no, like I like what I do. I like to work. Like this is something I enjoy doing. I also like, to the degree that right now, I think I shared this a couple live streams ago, we were talking about some of the changes I'm making to content. I'm having so much fun tinkering on Instagram. Instagram's kind of my playground because you are my main people. Like this is my main space, right? And I've just sort of ignored Instagram not ignored it. I've shown up, but it's kind of been my not place I put a lot of attention in. I'm just having so much fun, essentially working, but just tinkering and playing and taking a look at things and being curious about things and trying and testing different things there. It fulfills my creative outlet. I think when I was acting, again, that was one of the reasons I stopped acting. I loved when I got to be on set and work. I really found it frustrating when I didn't have a place to like put my creative energy in and work. So that is one of my dirty secrets. I work a pretty full week. I don't know if that would change a whole lot. I continue to make more money in my business, and I could definitely scale back if I wanted to. In fact, this is probably not where you take the conversation. I also need to close my blind a little bit, y'all, because I've got a weird sunbeam that is like, there we go, that is landing in my face. I had a call with my coach last week. We were talking about something, and completely different, and she said something about having 30 clients. I usually have between 20 and 25 clients on my roster, for those of you who are curious. And she said something around holding 30 clients. I was like, oh, you mean it's okay if I want to have 30 clients? And she was just laughing at me. I'm not going to do that. I think that would actually not be of service to my clients and the quality of attention I can give them. But I was just cracking her up because that's how much I got like excited about that, where I think somebody else would be like just eye roll, or I don't know, just hate that completely. So that is my dirty secret and my dirty truth. But let's talk about the other piece here. This is the thing I think a lot of people making multi 6-7 figures don't want to talk about. And I'm realizing this is still working. The other truth to this, and this is different than I like to work, but the other truth or the other dirty secret is that it does fucking take work to build a business and to get results and to make 6 figures and to scale your business and to continue to stay in business and to continue to get those results. And I feel like no one in our space wants to say that. And I think it is so unfair to everyone, because what I know to be true is even for my clients who aren't working a ton of hours, there is still effort behind the results, and there is still work, and sometimes even in air quotes hard work, and that's what I want to talk a little bit more about. And I think it's so unfair to those of you then who are hearing the narrative that it is super fucking easy. It doesn't take any work. And I'm not painting a story that has to be like miserable and grind it out. Like there's a very, very, very big difference between grueling work and grinding it out and burnout and hard work from the sense of like labor intensive. I mean, let's be honest. I know I said this on a live stream not too long ago. What we do in the online space is also a joke compared to what people used to do for work. Like I'm on a live stream. We like dance on a reel, even if we're mad that we have to dance on a reel. Like we have a pretty fucking cush, and there is effort behind results, and sometimes it is hard work in terms of working edges or working through discomfort or putting yourself out there in a way other people wouldn't, or being willing to do something people wouldn't, or figuring something out, or problem solving, or literally like actually putting your butt in the seat for a certain amount of time until the results show up. And the reason I want to say that is I think, well, I know because I hear this from clients, how easy it is to make yourself wrong if it feels hard and it feels like you're doing work and you're not getting the results, or you are getting the results and then thinking it should look a different way, and or trying to get results in a different way. And I think that's just so unfair for anyone to have to do to themselves. And I think it's the reason it's a dirty secret is I know even as I'm saying this, there's a very real possibility that someone's going to hear this and be like, oh, Kim, that's just such a bad mindset. And I want to offer, like, you can think whatever you want to think. I know that that's a possibility because I brought this to my coach 3 or 4 years ago where I'm like, do I have a bad mindset around this? As opposed to, no, what are just some of the realities in business, and can we just start to be a little bit more honest about that? And this doesn't, I'm going to really explain what I mean about hard, not hard. But I do think this is a little bit of a dirty secret, and the thing that like no one wants to say, yes, I'm sitting here on a massive launch and just made a fuck ton of money in my business. But the truth is, this is the result of multiple launches. This is the result of doing the work for years. This is the result of not grinding it out, but like being in the trenches with my people and like figuring this shit out when, this is the result of investing in my business instead of buying a bunch of stuff. I just think people don't want to say that because it's not as sexy. And I think, again, it just can make it so frustrating when you're then in it, when you think it should look a different way. So I'm going to break this down a couple ways because I want to talk about this piece, and then I have one other dirty secret I'll share with you before we close. But let's just talk about the hard work a little bit, because I also think we hear then people say it's easy. I probably say it's easy sometimes. And so there's 3 pieces with hard work. My dirty secret around this. One, I choose my hard, and that makes everything feel easier. And I also don't make things harder than they need to be to feel like I've earned success or results. And I think that is something that is worth understanding when it's like, yeah, business can be hard. It does take effort, it does take work. And like the truth is sometimes it can feel hard. I think the other truth is business is remarkably simple and practical when we take our own emotionality out of it. That is actually one of my dirty secrets that I was going to share later, but I think it's really relevant here. I think the business is so simple and so obvious and so practical in terms of strategy. I think even understanding people, which is a big part of business, is pretty simple, and us humans are pretty predictable for as unique as we are. And that is a dirty secret of mine, because I really do think that, to the degree that sometimes it feels so simple and so easy that I wonder if I'm missing something, and I have to be mindful I don't overcomplicate it. Or sometimes I worry where I'm like, is it okay for me to charge money for this? Because I think this is pretty simple and pretty obvious. This is also my skill set and my zone of genius, but that is definitely a dirty secret of mine. But I think what isn't easy, and so I think this is where things start to get confusing. You can hear someone like me say, business is so simple and so practical and so not complicated, and people, humans, for as complicated as we might seem, we're pretty predictable. We just kind of are. And so you can hear this, and then I'm also saying, but business can be really hard or feel hard, and it takes effort, and these can feel like two diametrically opposed thoughts. But I think the difference is, first and foremost, for as simple as things are, that's if we're completely completely neutral, that's, again, I think I also have the experience, right? And I have a different vantage point. But that just because something is simple doesn't mean it feels easy, doesn't mean we don't get in our own way, doesn't mean we're also not a human with what feels like complicated feelings and emotions and agendas and needs that muddies everything up. It doesn't mean that we don't think things are too simple and want to overcomplicate them. It also doesn't mean that just because something is simple, that it isn't a challenge to figure out and to solve. Most of problem, I think of business like a game, and that it's sort of like a puzzle in a game. It's just that we're always figuring out. And I share with you a lot that my husband's really big on board games, and there are these really strategic board games that I win at a lot. But one of the reasons for that is I just see them so neutrally. I don't get super emotionally invested, and I am always just like, this is just a puzzle to solve. If I can hack the puzzle, the strategy for this game, then I will just get more points than everyone else. And that's just sort of my mindset going in, which makes me sound a little bit like a robot, and I'm like the least robotic person ever, but that's how I think about games. So that's a little bit of how I think about business and money. And so in that way, it is super simple and it's super easy, but it's also hard in that you still have to figure that out. And sometimes it can be challenging, and sometimes that means you try a bunch of things and the answer is obvious, but they don't work. It doesn't mean that just because it's simple that it always works the way you want it to. And I think that is the part that can be really challenging, especially at the start of business or whenever you're looking to up level or scale. Hopefully this is making sense, y'all. Let me know if you have questions, thoughts, reflections, anything you want me to add into that. And I'm also glad that I can now see comments, because at least I think I can see comments. So yeah, well, no, it says I have one more comment and I can't see it. Okay, I see that there is another comment. Oh, yes, okay. I don't know, Emma, do you know Facebook? I don't understand why this keeps happening. Emma says, yes, it's so hard when we see people say I went 0 to 200K in 6 months or something, which totally may have happened, but probably isn't the norm. 1,000%. Or if it is the norm, I think we just miss the nuance. Or not the norm, but even if that happens, we miss the information that they had a business beforehand, or that, yes, but during that time they were working wild amounts of hours or threw 200K into Facebook ads to hurry up and grow their audience, or they had an MBA and again, like just experience in business, or had a tested product or service. I think there's just a lot of nuance that also gets missed from when we hear results like that. And look, to be fair, I don't think anybody is hiding that information intentionally. I think in marketing, a lot of times it wouldn't even make sense to share, and we usually get like little snippets of posts where like if we gave all of that nuance, it wouldn't make sense. I also think, and I'll share this a little bit, I think what also happened is if we're choosing our hard, so that was one of the pieces here, is I also choose my heart. A lot of times when you choose your hard, and what I mean by that is I choose the path of least resistance. I choose things that are in my zone of genius. I choose the things, like I said, I chose a one-on-one only model. One of my dirty secrets is I feel like I have the easiest fucking business model in the world. I feel like I'm just like, this is so easy, right? But that's because this is what I love to do. Someone else will come into my business and be like, this is miserable. You work a full week, you hold all these clients, you hold all of people's stuff, you've got to be on calls all day, right? You're supporting clients between session, like that to some people would seem miserable. To me, it's just what I love to do so much. So to me, it feels like this is just the easiest thing ever. So it's very easy then. It's not a lie or a omission of the truth if I'm like, hey, I had these results and it just seemed super easy and it felt like a breeze because I'm choosing my hard. But if we actually get granular, the truth is this would be hard for many people, and it still takes effort, it still takes work, and there are still plenty aspects of business while I'm choosing my hard and I'm choosing the path of least resistance and the things I want to do that actually do feel very challenging in the moment. I also think as humans, and I don't even think that this is just something I think. I think there's research on this. I think this is based in psychology. I think what we don't realize is our brains want comfort and want to choose what does not feel painful, right? So if we are at default, our brains say work feels hard and uncomfortable, we don't like that. Going to the gym feels hard and uncomfortable, we don't like that, right? Like that is just our brain at rest, like it resists anything that's outside of our comfort zone. That being said, I'm pretty sure if you surveyed 1,000 humans, most of them would tell you, if we actually check in with when they feel the happiest, when they feel the most satisfied, when they feel the best, it is on the other side of a challenge, right? I might say to all of you today, I feel like I use this example all the time, but I think it's just so fitting. I have zero desire to get out of my nice, cozy, warm house and go to my spin class later. But I also know, and I don't like necessarily feel like sweating today and like busting my butt, right? But I also know after that class is finished, I am going to feel amazing. I am going to feel so much satisfaction from just having done hard work and done it really well. I'm going to feel a sense of accomplishment. I'm going to feel a sense of pride. I'm also going to have the endorphins running through my system, right? And I will look back and say, oh, that was easy. That was super easy. That was super fun. And I think this is also why it's so confusing in our space. I think the majority of people are not trying to be misleading. I think it's just that we mislead ourselves. And on hindsight is 2020, like the rose colored glasses, whatever you want to call it. When we're on the other side of hard work, when we're on the other side of challenge, I think because we are literally wired to thrive in challenge, I think that is what gives us purpose. It's the Ikigai? Gosh, I wish I could pronounce that correctly. I need to like go watch the longevity series again, right? But I think on the other side of that, we get such a sense of purpose, fulfillment, joy, satisfaction, pride, accomplishment, and also through doing something, we have mastery, we have repetition. Like things literally do become easier the more you're doing that. On the other side of it, we're like, yeah, that was a breeze, that was great. And so then it's very easy, if I wasn't stopping to think about this, to have this conversation, to share my dirty business secrets, right? I would just say to y'all, yeah, my business model is the easiest business model ever. It's super fucking easy to be a booked out multi-six-figure coach. Like making this kind of money is a breeze. Like, right? Like it would just, because that feels like my truth. But if I unpack that a couple layers, the dirty secret behind that is I chose my hard. So I chose the hard that feels more easeful to me. But if I also rewind back to my first years in business, there were so many challenges. I think I've said this so many times. I think the first six figures is the most challenging, and this is not to discourage anyone. This is just to normalize for everyone. But the reason for that, again, is not because we have to grind it out or it needs to be, or because business is complicated. It's just there's so many factors that go into results, and it's sort of like my spin classes now feel super easy. When I first started going to spin, they were hard. They just were. Now they're super easy because I'm in great shape, right? It takes time to develop mastery. It takes enough repetition for something that was hard to become easy. It takes time to build an audience, to learn how to sell, right? All of these different things. And so I think the path to the first six figures, on the other side of that, looking back, feels very easy to all of us. Where we're just like, pretty sure I did this to my coach. I'm pretty sure on my path to six figures, I probably said it was the hardest thing in the world. And on the other side of it, I was probably like, that was so easy. Like, let's just go make some more. And so again, just to normalize this, I think this is kind of the dirty secret of our space. And it's not because people are intentionally being jerks. It's just because of how we're wired as humans. I feel like I had a thought in there for you all, but I just lost it. Hopefully it'll come back. So in terms of hard work, the dirty secret there, I think that is a big difference. Is I really do choose my hard so that it feels easy, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't actually take work, and that doesn't mean that sometimes it doesn't feel hard. Again, I think remembering that I think there's also a very big difference between making something harder than it needs to be, pushing yourself, grinding, burning out, and making something hard so that you feel worthy. This is something I talk a lot with. This is something I've had to unwind, honestly, in the past, where it's sort of like we feel like we deserve certain results because we've earned it, right? That is very different than there are just going to be certain things that when they're new and it's outside your comfort zone that you have to learn, it might just feel hard in the moment. But again, if you're choosing your hard, and if you're choosing to like the model you have and the things you do, it probably will feel easier to you. And on the other side of it tends to feel easy. The other thing I think is, I find, and I'd be curious to hear from others, I find so much of what is hard work or hard in business are things that aren't necessarily labor intensive. And I think that's the piece I want to keep coming back to. But I also want to normalize, because I think this is just the things you're not supposed to say, is that sometimes business is hard. again, I don't think business feels hard for me now, but that's just because I have 7.5 years under my belt. Just like I don't think spin class is hard now. I would say that's the easiest workout ever. Where somebody who's new to spin would be like, are you fucking kidding me, Kim? Like, I can't even get through the class, right? So I think I probably have far more hard challenges in my business today just because of what I'm holding, but it doesn't feel hard because I built up the endurance, because I also just generally already have a pretty large capacity as a human, but I've stretched that capacity through overcoming hard challenges in business and growing and expanding. And I think that's just important to say because, again, I think it's just not the thing we're supposed to say that can then be very confusing to you if you're sitting in something where like, everyone's saying this is so easy, but like this feels really, really hard. But what I find is for myself, and I think for most of my clients, most of what I see feels hard in business is not, again, the labor, right? And I think that's when we talk about in our online space, like I think that is where we can get a kind of bad mindset, but a mindset that can get us in our own way is when we're so locked into just number of hours worked equals money, because that is just an equation that will have you hit a ceiling in business. And that's when we don't delegate, and that's when we don't look to scale. And I think that is actually something that we want to unwind, but that is very different than most of the hard work in business for people are things like holding boundaries, having a tough conversation with a team member, having and holding space for someone going through something challenging, navigating sticky client situations behind closed doors, right? Having someone who doesn't pay you for the first time, right? Situations that we have to navigate as a CEO. I think those are more the hard things in business, not knowing for as much as you have predictable, reliable income, maybe not necessarily knowing what's going to happen in a couple of months, or, the industry doing funky things, algorithms changing, the economy doing things, COVID happening, right? Like I think someone on your team ghosting or getting sick or going on maternity leave, right? I think it's more those sorts of things that are challenges that need to be problem solved that I would say is probably more the hard work, less I think what we tend to hear and what I do think can get people in their own way is thinking it's more like literally the amount of work you're doing. So I really hope that difference and nuance makes sense there. And just seeing if there is no questions or comments. The other piece with the hard work one, and the reason I want to talk about this one so much is I really think it's probably one of my dirtiest secrets because I love to work, but just also understanding what that means. And it's sort of what I was alluding to with the spin class and with the sort of capacity. What I find for myself and with clients is what's hard today becomes easy tomorrow. And that's what I was talking about. And I really do think, and think psychology points to this, that choosing your hard and being willing to lean into challenges is also what gives you satisfaction and joy. And remembering those two pieces, I think, is what can make you actually like to work. I think one of the reasons I love to work so much, besides loving what I do, is I just know I'm going to get such a sense of fulfillment and purpose by doing something. And it's sort of like, you all know, I acted for 10 years and I waited tables. I was a cocktail server for 10 years. And that was hard sometimes. And there were days I did not want to go to that job. But I also got better at it the longer I did it, in terms of like what's hard now becomes easy later. But what I found is when I had a shift that was like, I had some crazy shifts, y'all. Like I worked at a very popular place on Sunset Strip. I remember, we won't even go into all the stories. So many stories of shifts where you're just like, that was just hard to navigate and really hard to deal with at the bar. But what I found is after navigating a really hard shift and a really hard day, like just such a sense of like a job well done and a sense of pride. I think there's a great book on this, and I think there's some research on this, and I wish I could think of the name, but it talks a lot about people who do work with their hands and how satisfied they are and how happy they are as individuals. And I think it's sort of that same idea where I think, especially in the online space, unless we're like making a reel or doing something like that, I think that's why some of us are enjoying playing with social media in a different way, because we actually get to like use our hands and make something in a different way. But I think we forget that up until very recently, most of us were doing something that was a little bit more with our hands, a little more physical, and that I do think is what gave people purpose and a sense of satisfaction. And there's something about like crafting something and making it and being done with it. And so I think we forget that. And then we come into a space that's almost like trying to train everybody how to get away from that as quickly as possible. And look, I'm here for delegating. I'm so here for being efficient. But I also think this is a dirty secret about making more money in business. As you have more team support, as you delegate, some of those things that maybe at the start of business that let you tinker, that let you get your hands in, that let you kind of overcome those challenges, you're not in those pieces as much. And so I think there is a way in which that itself can be a very interesting mindfuck for people. And sometimes I think that people have to find new ways to get that sense of satisfaction and joy in their business. I really hope this is making sense for y'all. I know that's something I've had to figure. I mean, I think that's probably why I still like being on one-on-one calls. I honestly think if I just like scaled myself completely out of my business, I wonder how satisfied I would be, because I think there just is that satisfaction of we're not literally using our hands to make something, but of a job well done. And again, just to normalize that, because I think sometimes when we understand that, it can also help motivate us to do the things that feel hard on the front side, that on the other side of it, you'll actually feel really great for. But we have to almost know these things, otherwise no one would ever put themselves out there to run a masterclass for the first time or to run a free training for the first time, right? Because it just feels hard and challenging, as opposed to knowing that on the other side of it, it's going to give you that sense of satisfaction and joy and happiness. And again, there's, I think, real psychological research around this. And then the other part of this is just really understanding what we were talking about earlier. What is hard today in business will be easy later. And I think this is where it gets confusing in our space. Again, my business, I'm pretty sure if Kim 7.5 years ago jumped into my business today, I'd be like, what in the actual fuck? This feels so hard. But to me, I'm like, this feels like a breeze and super spacious. And I have tons of free time and like so easy. But that's because I've had time to be in mastery. I've had time to learn and problem solve. I've had time to create ease through repetition, through learning, through growth. I've also had time to stretch my capacity. I've also had time I talk so much about your CEO role, but I really talk about that for a reason. I've had so much time to learn how to think like a business owner and to treat my business really neutrally, where a lot of stuff that probably felt hard because I was making it hard emotionally 7.5 years ago is just not emotional today, and it is just more like a board game where it's just like, great, this is just a problem for us to solve and figure out, versus something that just felt harder because I was maybe taking it more personally 7.5 years ago. And I think that's we talked about that in one of our recent live streams, but I think that is such a dirty secret maybe I'm not supposed to tell you, but one of the reasons business feels easy now is it's just not that personal in the way that it was before. Okay. I want to make sure I get to the other pieces, though, because I've been rambling on this, and we are almost at an hour. It's so amazing how the time goes. That's not a dirty secret, but that should be a dirty secret. I could just hang out with y'all and talk about this stuff for, like, hours and hours, and I just, like, have to catch myself. I'm like, oh, my goodness, it's almost been an hour, and also I am going to that spin class later. So there's that. If you've hung out on my lives, you know that I just like to hang with y'all a lot. But let's talk to the other, because you get it on the hard work piece. And again, and then I'll jump to, there's 2 other dirty secrets that I can be a little quicker on that I'm going to share. But the reason I wanted to go into that a little bit more depth is I hope that is both normalizing and gives you a different frame, but also doesn't have you making yourself wrong and trying to figure out a way around that as you're either scaling to your first 6 figures, or if you're at 6 figures looking to scale and you're like having a launch for the first time, or you're expanding how many people you're holding in a group program, or you're growing your team for the first time, right? Any of these things that are up levels and that are asking you to do something different than what you've established as your normal, just to normalize, it probably will feel hard. It might be so practically simple, but it might feel hard. And part of that is, obviously we can make things personal, but part of that is because it's new and you haven't had a time to be in the mastery of it. And also part of it is because it probably will take more effort, right? It just tends to take more effort on the front side of a result. It takes, what is it, like 90% of fuel to go for a rocket ship to go into space, and then it can coast. Anytime you're creating something new like that, it just tends to take a lot more fuel. And so I think just, again, normalizing that so you're not making that wrong, but also so you can set expectations up for yourself in the way that that makes sense, instead of, I think that's where so many people get themselves in trouble, where they just set these expectations that are just so unfair and just not realistic. And I'm here for unrealistic goals in business, but I mean in terms of realistic, in terms of like, but that's just not the way anyone creates anything, or how business works. Okay. All right. Okay, so the other two things here. So this is the irony about my one-on-one only business model that never dawned on me until years ago, that makes me laugh to myself. I think this is also something I'm not supposed to share, but I'm going to anyway. So this is kind of a two-parter. One, I think just to normalize, I think it's like people don't want to talk about this, but passive revenue is rarely passive. And I say this again because I have so many clients who come to me and they're like just trying to figure out, because someone sold them on the passive revenue funnel they can make. And I think our space in general, I don't know if it's still doing this, because I try not to pay attention too much to what other people are doing. I understand this more through what my clients bring to me as triggers or things that they're stuck with. But I think there has been a lot of teachings for almost like how to get out of the thing you started your business with as quickly as possible. And I think that's different than scaling. I think that makes sense if you're in a place where it makes sense to scale. But I think almost from like the get-go, before you even have anything to scale, there's like such a push like that's the right way to do things. And it's almost a whole nother conversation, but just a reminder, you have to have something to scale at first. So having a conversation about scaling doesn't make sense if you don't have something to scale in the first place. And passive revenue is rarely passive. Rarely is it passive. Maybe if you're investing in the stock market, unless you're taking into account like actually needing to put money into the stock market. I think there are a couple more passive revenue streams. Like if you're setting up, I have a friend who's just on the podcast this week, Susie, who teaches Airbnb, right? That might be a little bit more of a passive revenue stream, but that's still not a passive business. There is still work by you or the people you are employing to like clean the unit, reset it up, to buying there's still quite a bit of non-passive work in there. And I say that because I think what can happen is it's kind of like with this whole narrative of we're not supposed to work, results are just supposed to happen, like it's almost supposed to be like as little work or effort as possible, otherwise you're doing something wrong. I think then it can be such a rude awakening when going after a passive revenue stream takes work. And having a passive revenue stream that works really well does require probably even more work and dedication. I think a lot of times when people are talking about passive revenue, they're talking about not doing what I'm doing, right? Needing to actively show up on a call at a specific time to be able to make money. And that's a beautiful thing. I have lots of clients who we've built that into their business, and it's a great way to scale many businesses. But I think understanding that is really important, because again, otherwise it's just, I think, such a rude awakening and not what many people, especially those of you who are service-driven, passion-driven, want. When, if you're like me, like I want to be on calls with people, I think it can then be almost a rude awakening where you're like, wait, I'm still working a bunch. I'm still trading my time for money. It's just, instead of trading my time for money on a call, I'm trading my time for money on working on the back end of this email sequence, or working on my Facebook ads, or on, figuring out the marketing for Instagram to get more people to go through this funnel, and which is fine if that's what you want. But I think just realizing that there is a whole lot that's required for that passive revenue. And what dawned on me recently that I think is it just cracks me up is I've just always been so aware of that. So I have just always choose to make money in the way I actually want to make money. And I'm just very aware that no matter what, I'm going to trade time for money. Like this whole idea that you're not going to is, again, unless you're investing in the stock market and you're like really just setting and forgetting it, it's just not a thing. And because of that, I've just chosen what I actually want to do and what I actually like. And the hilarious thing to me is, because I have a revenue share model, I actually do make pretty purely passive revenue from one-on-one. And I never went about it for that reason. Like it just dawned on me recently, and it kind of cracks me up, because I think that's just like the funny things we do, right? If we try to chase something, we get mad because we're trying to chase and run away from work, for example, and then we run away from the very reason we got into business in the first place, and we're mad when all of our time is being spent learning and working on Facebook ads, for example. Which there's nothing wrong if that's what you want to do. I recently took a course on Facebook ads. I don't think it makes sense in my business, but the geek strategy part of me And like the scientist part of my brain thinks that could be very, very fun. If I had a different business model, I would probably spend a whole lot of time doing that and enjoy the fuck out of it. But that's what I would be doing it, not because I am trying to figure out how to work as little as possible and thinking that there's something wrong with trading time for money and that I should like have to figure out a way to hack that to be able to make money. I think that's the part that gets us in hot water. And then again, just then the irony is when you're choosing the path you actually want to follow, when you're selling the thing you believe in, when you're selling the thing you think will really help people, when you're doing the thing you actually want to do, when you're choosing your heart, the irony is I think that's when you not only make more money, but you end up with things like, oh, I'm actually making passive revenue. I'm making quite a bit of passive revenue every month because of the revenue share. So that is a dirty secret. I feel like I'm probably not supposed to say that, but we're just gonna talk about that anyway. The other I said this earlier, but the other part with that is I really do think that I have the easiest business and the easiest business model, and I'm so mindful because we've just had the whole conversation about business can be hard and hard work, and not to say business has to be hard, but just there will be elements of things that feel challenging and hard. But this is what I wish for you. This is what I hope for you. And I hope this is part of what you'll take away from this conversation, because the truth is, and the reason I think I have the results I do, but also the reason, like, I know how the sausage is made. I know what I could do if I just wanted to make more money faster. And who knows, there might be a season in my business where I choose some of those things, but I love money, and I talk about that a lot. But for as much as I love money, I care about how I make my money, and I care about my clients and my clients' results far more than I care about making money. And I'm very aware that I know I've talked about this on the podcast, and I know this is something that would have made me eye roll so fucking hard 7.5 years ago. But I'm also very aware that after a certain level of money, it doesn't change your life that much. And in any way that it would change your life, it is something that there's a whole bunch of research on this, just in terms of like the hedonic treadmill. There's a way in which we tend to get acclimated and level set to it really quickly. So I'm very aware that if I suddenly doubled my revenue, I would be thrilled, and I'm here for it. And I also have that as a part of my plan and what I want. Again, I love money, but I'm also very aware that like the difference is I would probably just invest a little bit more, so I wouldn't notice tangibly that much today. And like maybe I'd buy an extra painting or something, which would be phenomenal, but like it's not going to change the quality of my day-to-day life at this stage in business all that much. And so knowing that, because I know that, I have zero desire to chase making money in ways I don't want to. And for as much as, y'all, I love money, like I really do, and I love the game of money, and I love investing money, and I love playing with money. Like I just love not to see what money can do for you, but the game of it, I guess, just like the same way I love the game of business. I just find it more fascinating and more like a puzzle to figure out and solve. So for as much as that, I think this is also, I say this is a dirty secret because I'm pretty sure there's someone in our space who's like, Kim, that's a bad money mindset. That's just a bad mindset to have. But the truth is, I care so much more about how I make my money. And with that, what that means is, again, what I was saying earlier, is I care so much more about my clients and doing good work and them making money and them getting results. And of course, the irony is, because of revenue share, that means I make more money. But I have plenty of clients who are, in fact, one of my clients who's on track for $1 million this year is been working with me for years, since before I had revenue share. So I grandfather my clients in. They're not in revenue share. I care so much more about that client making $1 million than me trying to put them on revenue share to make more money. I'm not going to see an extra time for that, but I still care so much about that. And I care so much more about the work, and again, choosing my heart, choosing the way I want to work. But I think that's also one of the reasons business feels really good and business feels really easeful. And so for someone who might want to say that's a bad money mindset, I don't know. You get to decide for yourself. I personally think it feels like a very grounded, neutral mindset, and it really allows me to feel just so good in my business. And because of that, with what I was leading with here, is I really do feel like because of that, I have one of the easiest business models, one of the easiest businesses. It just feels so good. But the reason for that, and this is what I hope you'll take away from this, and what I hope you'll give yourself permission around, I think so much of the reason for that is I'm just so clear on what feels good to me and what heart I want to choose. I both don't have the illusion that it's supposed to look different, that business is supposed to never have challenges. I both know that, or both, this would be more than one both implies two, but I know that I've chosen my heart in that, yeah, like, I guess I work hard and that I work a bunch of hours per week, but that's me choosing my heart, and that feels really easy in the path of least resistance. And maybe this is a good way to describe it. I know that I could choose the hard and work fewer hours and maybe make a little bit more money by, let's say, offering a group program. But I also know that that is not the path of least resistance. That would actually feel a lot harder to me. That doesn't feel like, because I know one of the ways that I want to make money is, I know one-on-one is, look, I just think it's the best way to help someone get results. This is not throwing shade on group programs. Who knows? I might offer one in the future. I don't plan to. This is not me seeding that, but there are plenty of great group programs out there. So this is by no means me saying that, but I do think if we just compare in terms of results, like I think groups are great too if you don't have the resources to be able to invest in one-on-one. I just know I can help my clients get better results with one-on-one. I think that's also my zone of genius. So that's me choosing my heart, right? I could choose a group versus one-on-one, and that might be easier in some ways to make more money faster, but it wouldn't feel easier for me in terms of the way what matters to me in terms of the way I want to serve clients, the relationships I want to have, the way I want to work. But the other thing in terms of I choose my heart with that is I don't have to launch, y'all. Like, there's nothing wrong with a launch. I love helping clients with their launches, but let's just be honest. A one-on-one model is pretty simple in that, like, I don't have to launch, and most of my clients renew, and open up some spots from time to time, but it's pretty easy to stay fully booked. And again, I'm mindful of, this is the whole conversation where it's like, and 7.5 years ago, that did not feel easy. That felt so hard, right? Because I hadn't mastered that yet, because I hadn't created that yet. And so this is such a like meta conversation for that. I'm both choosing my hard because it feels easy to me, and also there was a time in which my current easy did not feel easy. It felt impossible. Like, it was mind-boggling to me that I might ever be able to have that many clients and to figure that out. And so that's a little meta of everything we're talking about, where it's like, I hope for you'll give yourself permission to not listen to what you're supposed to do, to choose what you actually want, what actually feels like the way you want to make money, what actually feels like your path of least resistance. That doesn't mean there will never be challenges. That does not mean that, even though I think I have the best business model and the easiest business model, I feel like I'm not supposed to say that out loud, but it's just true. Right? That doesn't mean that I don't have challenges. It doesn't mean that I haven't had plenty of challenges this year to navigate between team stuff and client stuff and industry stuff, right? And because I'm choosing my hard, because I'm choosing my path of least resistance, it feels like a small little blip. Whereas if I felt like I had to do something else because that was the way I was supposed to make money, ironically, because that's the way it's supposed to be easier, right? That would actually feel just hard and out of congruence, instead of this just feels like a challenge that feels really good to overcome. So play with that, give yourself permission around that, normalize that no matter what path you choose in business, there are going to be trade-offs, there are going to be challenges, there are going to be hurdles, there are going to be seasons that feel harder than others. And on the other side of it, especially if you're choosing the path that you actually want, on the other side of that, you're going to look back and you're like, oh my God, that was so easy. You will literally forget the challenges. But you will do that if you're choosing the path you actually want. If you do that thing where you choose the thing because you think you're supposed to and you work through the hard, it will probably always feel challenging and hard because there's that misalignment there. Okay, I think that is all the things I wanted to share. Those are my they're not dirty, but I feel like the things we're not supposed to talk about in our space, but also hopefully it's normalizing, it's permission giving for you, it's helpful for you just to hear from someone who's been in business for a second and who's definitely had seasons where things have felt hard, and also we're looking back to me and like, oh, that's so easy. So again, perspective is what makes such a big difference there. Let me know on the replay if you have questions, reflections, ahas for me, and then a reminder, if there's anyone who's like, hey, I've been thinking about wanting an intensive and I haven't been able to get in your calendar, Kim, reach out, you can DM me. Or if you're just curious about what it would look like to work together, I promise I won't push you to do all hard things. most of my clients will probably tell you I make business feel so freaking simple and more easeful and hold them through the hard challenges. And I'm really great on the mindset side of things around that, but also from a really neutral, teaching you, helping you, supporting you, coaching you to think like a CEO, like a business owner, instead of like flowing smoke up your butt or putting glitter on everything. But also if you want some support with the practical side of things and just getting really clear on what is the path of least resistance, what is the simple strategy that works for your business, how can you reach that first 6 figures or take your business to that next 6 or 7 figures. That is what I support my clients with. So we will drop a link for, if you're just curious about what it would be like to work with me, a free coaching session to have a way to kind of give it a test, give it a trial. I know there's a lot of people online and there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, and it's tough to know at this stage in our online space who is who they say they are. So I would love to offer that to you sometime my Friday open. It would make me happy. You can make me so happy by booking a call with me, because I, again, love to do that with my day. So I'm looking forward to connecting with a couple of you, and then I'll be back next week and we'll chat on another topic. Bye, y'all.